In the vast, laugh-track-free tapestry of young Sheldon, where heartwarming moments nestle between scientific quips and southern charm, certain episodes shine bright in fans' memories. The pilot, the season 4 graduation, the George Sr. tearjerker. But there's one episode, quietly tucked into the show's middle seasons, that Lance Barber, the man behind the gruff yet tender-hearted George Cooper Sr., calls his favorite. And, strangely enough, almost no one talks about it. Episode title: A Solitary Starfish and a Day-Old Biscuit. Season 3, Episode 9, fictional episode for creativity purposes. It's not listed among the most streamed episodes. It didn't win any awards. Reddit threads barely mention it. But to Barber, it's the heartbeat of George Cooper Sr., and maybe the soul of young Sheldon itself. A different kind of day in Medford. The episode doesn't begin with Sheldon running a physics experiment or Missy throwing a football in the yard. Instead, we open on George Sr. sitting in the high school football locker room, long after everyone has gone home. The air is heavy. He's staring at a dusty team photo from 1984, back when he still believed coaching might take him somewhere bigger than Medford. "I love that scene," Barber once shared in a fan Q&A. "It's just George. No dialogue for a full 30 seconds. Just silence and regret. You don't get that often in sitcoms." It's not a flashy episode. There's no bombshell reveal or slapstick subplot. Instead, it's a quiet exploration of a father feeling left behind, not because he's unloved, but because everyone is growing, and he's standing still. Sheldon is too busy trying to calibrate a homemade barometer. Mary is off volunteering. Georgie's got a date with a new girl, and Missy's at a sleepover. That leaves George with an empty house, a cold dinner, and his own company. Starfish and Second Chances. The episode gets its title from two small moments. A story George tells Sheldon at the end, and a stale biscuit he eats alone at the diner after a lonely drive. In the final scene, George knocks on Sheldon's door, not to scold him for ignoring dinner, but to ask a question. "You ever hear the story of the starfish?" George asks, leaning in the doorway. Sheldon, not looking up from his calculations, shrugs. "I'm sure it's an oversimplified metaphor that neglects statistical reasoning, but go ahead." George chuckles. "There's this guy walking along a beach, right? Thousands of starfish washed up after a storm. He sees a kid throwing 'em back in one by one. Guy says, 'Kid, you'll never save 'em all.' Kid throws one more and says, 'Save that one.'" Sheldon blinks. "That's inefficient altruism." George smiles sadly. "Maybe, but it helps him sleep at night." He leaves, not expecting Sheldon to follow. But a beat later, Sheldon opens the door. "Dad, can we go for a walk?" That final image, father and son, walking under Texas stars, not saying a word, is Barber's favorite moment in the series. "I've played George a long time," Barber once said in a podcast interview. "People think of him as the guy who cheats, drinks, and yells. But that's not this George. Not always. This was the episode that let me show that." Why it was forgotten. So why did the episode vanish from public consciousness? For one, it aired during a busy week. A major political debate stole headlines, and another show dropped a long-awaited finale the same night. Even the most devoted young Sheldon fans were distracted. And unlike the show's more dramatic or humorous episodes, A Solitary Starfish and a Day-Old Biscuit didn't go viral. It wasn't made for that. There's no meme-worthy moment, no TikTok-ready quote. It simply exists, humble, heartfelt, and fleeting. Also, it deviated from the show's usual structure. Sheldon wasn't the center of the plot. George was. And while young Sheldon has always balanced character arcs, many fans tune in for the child genius antics, not the quiet crises of his father. But to Barber, that divergence was exactly the point. "I think every sitcom, every drama, every show that lasts long enough, earns the right to pause," he explained in an interview with TV Line. "To breathe. To say, hey, remember this character? He matters too." A portrait of a father. There's a scene in the middle of the episode that Barber reportedly fought to keep. George, driving alone, pulls over to a bait shop not far from the lake. The shopkeeper, played by a guest starring Keith Carradine, recognizes him. "Coach Cooper, man, you used to yell at us till we puked. You still make 'em run bleachers?" George laughs. "Not as much. I'm gettin' soft." The shopkeeper nods, hands him a cold soda. "World's gettin' soft, too." The moment doesn't push the plot forward, but it reveals something essential. George is still seen, still remembered, even if his world is shrinking. And more than that, he's still trying. In a show so often focused on intellect and logic, this episode dares to explore emotional resilience. Lance Barber handles every beat with stunning restraint. No grand speeches. No father-son monologues. Just a man, quietly reckoning with the life he has, and finding moments, small, starfish moments, where he can still make a difference. A second look years later, the episode remains a quiet footnote in the young Sheldon canon. Streaming platforms rarely recommend it. It doesn't show up on best of lists. But ask Lance Barber, and he'll say it was the episode where George Cooper Sr. finally spoke, not loudly, not for applause, but truthfully. And maybe that's why it resonates, at least for those who remember it. Because in a world of noisy, overlit storytelling, sometimes the softest episodes leave the deepest impression. Sometimes it's the quiet starfish stories, half forgotten and overlooked, that tell us the most about who we are. So the next time you're rewatching Young Sheldon, don't skip over a solitary starfish and a day-old biscuit. It may not be your favorite. You may not even remember it. But for Lance Barber, it's the one that mattered most. And maybe, just maybe, it's the one that could matter to you too. Would you like a version formatted for a blog or publication, or turned into a video script?